Good morning and welcome to another episode of Crime Over Coffee. I'm one of your hosts, Abby.
And I'm your other host, Ericka.
And I am your editor, Bryce.
And this episode is going to be a little mini episode that kind of describes us and tells you a little bit about the behind the scenes of the podcast and kind of why we started it.
Yeah, and we're also actually going to be streaming some video on this as well. So we're going to be opening up a YouTube channel. Is that correct, Ericka?
Yes.
And we're going to be posting it on there if you kind of want to follow along, see what we look like, all that good stuff. And then we're also going to put it on our Facebook page and probably a teaser or two on Instagram, which right now, Instagram and Facebook are the big ones. Mm-hmm. So you could check those out right now. And then shortly there will be a YouTube channel.
Yes, that's correct.
So pour yourself a strong cup of joe and let's dive in.
We hope you like our intro music.
Yeah.
That was created and designed by Ericka.
And Abby.
I had nothing to do with it, so that's their genius.
I wouldn't quite call it genius. I mean, it's good, but not that good.
I'll take it.
So we're going to kind of go through our roles on the podcast. I mean, you know that I'm a host, Abby's a host, he's the editor, but we're going to kind of go a little bit more into detail about like what all of that consists of. Mm-hmm. So Abby, if you want to start.
Yeah, so I think what takes up a lot of our time, Ericka and I's at least, is researching for episodes, finding a good one, and making sure we get the correct data and a script going that makes sense. It definitely takes up the most of our time. Recording is a small chunk of that. And I do think that's a misconception, is that people think you can research stuff very quickly. It takes us days.
Yeah, it takes a while to research it, and then you keep running into the issue, at least I know Abby and I run into the issue of one source saying this and one source saying the other, and the biggest discrepancy I see is when it's talking about ages or dates, and it's like off by just a couple, but it drives me nuts because I want to know what is actually correct.
Yeah, it seems to always be just the tiniest thing, the small thing that you guys might not even notice, but it's just you have to find it.
And then Abby and I call each other and we're like, well, I can't figure out if this guy was 24 or 25 at the time of this.
Yeah, which I actually got a little taste of that issue when we were researching for this last episode, John Wayne Gacy, because I hosted a little bit of it. I did his childhood and up into his young adult life, and about half of the sources described how he met his wife one way and the other half of the sources said another way. And then eventually I started coming across, websites that were just more trustworthy and ended up going with that answer.
Yeah, you always want to look at the orgs or the EDUs or the academic sources are the best ones to go by. Stray away from Wikipedia or I'm trying to think of a name of some of the goofy ones I find.
Reddit?
Or just like random blogs too.
Yeah. And sometimes I go to Reddit just to see what people are saying, like to think about, because everybody has their own kind of thought process and way it's seeing things and looking at it, and so it gives me different perspectives and kind of gives me sometimes a different way to research the podcast, and sometimes it's just like, oh, this is a theory that I saw online, let's talk about it for the episode.
Which we get a lot of too, just when we're telling each other about them bouncing ideas off each other. The infamous, soon-to-be infamous towel debate between Ericka and I will always affect our relationship in a deep way.
That almost ended the friendship that we have.
That was from room, what was the number?
1046.
Yes, 1046. So if you have not heard that episode, go back and listen to us.
I got dragged into that one as well.
Everybody we know has gotten dragged into that one.
Yeah, and the goal is to release a blooper episode at some point, so hopefully a good chunk of our argument might be on there. We ended up ending the recording because we just knew it was getting too heated.
We'll have quite a bit. Like this last episode, I think we started out with an hour and a half of raw audio and ended up with just under an hour. So that's like 35, 40 minutes of unused content for, maybe it was just us in silence thinking about how we were going to word the next part, or us yelling random words like DiGiorno because we mispronounced a word. So it could be any of that.
Yes, our recording sessions are always rough, to say the least.
They're a lot of fun, though.
They are a lot of fun, and Bryce does a pretty good job of making the podcast sound good with whatever Abby and I tend to give him.
Every now and then I'll keep in a funny part just to keep the energy, kind of high, because we talk about pretty serious stuff on the podcast. But so every now and then we'll get some funny stuff in there.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys are good on that. We can move on to how we met. Ericka and I have been in the same school system together since, I don't know, always.
Yeah, always.
I think we had first grade together, and from then on, we've known each other. We became really close after high school.
We worked together
at a movie theater.
A local movie theater, and that was actually how we became super close friends.
And I'm hoping some of our Bones Theater homies are listening.
Yeah, shout out to those.
Hey guys.
Some local support, please.
Yeah, local support. We love it.
One of the 10 people that worked there, hopefully one of you are listening.
Eric could be listening.
Eric, what's up, man?
Shout out to you.
Oh, did he work there too?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then if you guys want to go ahead and go into how you met.
You want me to go, or do you?
I'll let you go.
Okay, so we were coworkers back when we both worked at Menards, one of the many great fun places that we've worked.
Wouldn't call it that, but yep.
Right. Actually, we both have worked at movie theaters too, so that's kind of the one thing we all three have in common. I didn't work at the same one that they did, but no, I was working the shipping receiving department of Menards. And what did you start in?
I started as a cashier. By the time that we met, though, I was doing service desk cashier, so it was like a more specified position, I guess, kind of. But.
Okay. But yeah, that's where we met. And then from there,
because you want to come get the batteries.
Right. That was my job.
Inside jokes, love them.
Yeah, so from there it was a pretty natural friendship. We've kind of hung out ever since, and then that's how I met Abby, was through her. So, and then eventually at some point I'm not sure whose idea it was first, but somebody brought up the idea of doing a crime podcast.
Yeah, Ericka and I have been toying around with it for a while, and for the longest time we were like, oh, it'd be so fun if we did it, and that went on for a couple months, and then we finally were like, we need to get into this, and Bryce is good at this stuff, and Ericka and I have no idea, so we were thankful that he was one of our friends to help us out with it.
Yeah. Abby and I's brain kind of is on the same wavelength, so a lot of times I don't even really know whose idea the crime podcast was in the first place. I think it's extremely possible we were just sitting in a room looking at each other and said at the exact same moment,
crime podcast.
Yeah, let's do a crime podcast.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly at what point they had mentioned it to me, but at one point we were all trying to decide on a name for it.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and
Lord,
I'm
that's
trying
forever.
I remember
time in.
Oh gosh, nope. So, but I remember at one point, I think probably Ericka said crime over coffee, almost as a joke, maybe. And then we're like, well, that's goofy. But then that ended up being what we stuck with. But I remember there were all sorts of random weird titles we thought of, and this is the one that stuck.
And we do drink coffee a lot.
Yeah,
constantly.
It's relevant. I know it's a listening medium, podcast art, so you can't really see it, but we are drinking coffee every time. We've got one of our lovely Crime Over Coffee mugs here with us. We were thinking about maybe at some point making more of those to sell.
Yeah. So if you guys are interested in those, you can email us or go on our social media. And I'll do the social media right now. Is that cool?
Yeah, if you want to.
Go for it.
So the social media that we have, the email that you can email us case suggestions or ideas or just comments or whatever is crimeovercoffeepod@outlook.com. And then you can like us on Facebook at Crime Over Coffee Podcast. And then we're also on Instagram at Crime Over Coffee. And on Instagram, we always tend to post some photos from our most recent episode. So typically a photo of victims or the perpetrator or anything that's really relevant. And in our podcast, we do mention when we're going through things, this will be on our social media. So
yeah, so I guess kind of while we're discussing roles, so Abby, you do a lot of the research for different episodes, which obviously you do too, Ericka, but then you tend to handle a lot of the social media as well. So so I guess kind of go through, describe what your workflow, what your process is like for handling, which right now is Facebook and Instagram. Sort of what do you think of when you put those posts together? Because they have to be pretty short and concise. You have to choose specific photos. So what's that like?
So I really try to choose the photos that are going to my goal is to draw people in, because if you're seeing our social media post as your very first thing, then I want you to be interested in it enough that you're going to seek out the podcast and actually listen. So I'll put little like teasers where I'll say like the John Wayne Gacy one. I said that he is pretty well known as a killer clown. Listen to the story to like find out how he got that name. So I do think things like that, because then it kind of, I feel like, draws people in a little bit more and they want to know. And then as for the photos, I just tend to, like I said, I post a photo normally of the victim, the perpetrator, and then anything that's interesting. For the John Wayne Gacy one, for example, I posted, he drew a photo of, I'm not going to tell you, because if you haven't listened to the episode, you need to go listen.
That was our Halloween special.
Yes. But he actually drew something and handed it to the detectives to try to help with solving the case. Mm-hmm. So if you guys want to go look at that, you can. But I try to post things like that are super relevant.
Yeah, which that's probably one of our most interesting cases to date, because there's a lot of information and a lot of weird psychological stuff you can talk about and discuss about that guy. But yeah, that's the one we just uploaded today, actually. Yes. This morning.
Yeah, October 31st.
Yep, so that's our spooky episode.
Happy Halloween, guys.
So yeah, you guys know me as your editor, and so I handle basically all the equipment that we decide to get and the recording. So kind of a little behind the scenes look of what that is like. So to put it in perspective, some of these episodes can take quite a long time to edit. Sometimes they're pretty short and sweet, like our Monday minis. Those are pretty easy to edit. This last one, so I had, so we record multiple tracks of audio at the same time because there's multiple of us. So this last one I had an hour and a half of audio from each microphone that I had to edit down into a nice concise episode, and a lot of that includes taking out a lot of the ums and the stuttering and mispronouncing words and the laughing and all that random
never
stuff.
Happens.
Not once. Yeah, so that particular episode ended up taking me a little over 7 hours of work. So between all three of us, this is almost like a small part-time job that we're starting to take on. So it's not easy by any means. It's not quick and short. It's something that we have to pack into our schedule at some point. And so like right after this, I've got meetings to go to, and they've got stuff to do. So it's not the easiest, quickest thing in the world, but it's because we enjoy it and have some sort of passion for it. We just do it and make it work.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It is a lot of work, but I think that's what makes it so rewarding, and seeing that people are listening to it really. We check it. I probably like 15 times a day, always texting each other. We have this many listens. Now we have this many, and probably excessively, but
just a little.
It is exciting.
It is. And, any help we can get, whether it's through just support, telling people to listen, or you can go to, we always put it in our social media spiel, a link. You can go to donate to us, or monthly donations. You can do it as low as $5 or a one-time one.
You can do it as low as 99 cents.
Oh, that's right.
Which that's directly through the Anchor website.
Yep, through Anchor. So you can go to anchor.fm /Ericka-Abby, and that's ERICKA-ABBY. And you can donate on there. So you can do like a monthly donation of the 99 cents or $4.99 or $9.99. I think they're the tiers,
right? And you can,
or a one-time donation.
Yeah, you can set it up like a monthly thing. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I guess if you think of how pretty insignificant 99 cents is, but like to us, that shows like there's people out there that really, really care and are interested in the research we're doing and putting all this information for you and delivering it in a somewhat nice package for you guys to listen to. So, if 99 cents a month is worth it for you to listen to it, then, that gives us more motivation and inspiration to keep doing it.
Yeah. And look, we all know everybody's got their different financial situations. If you can't donate anything, just sharing posts that we have or letting people know is such a big deal. It means a lot to us. We can see when you're sharing our post. And I think that has helped us even more significantly, because we have a lot of friends of friends who will contact us and be like, we heard of this through these people. And it makes me really excited, especially when we get someone following that we have no idea who it is.
Yeah, I always love to see that. And another thing that you can do other than just sharing the post is rating us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. I know some of them may not have ratings, but you can like the episode, comment on the episode, leave reviews,
or follow the podcast itself. I think in some way that kind of helps.
It notifies you of when a new episode is released. Yeah. I mean, we have a pretty set schedule for episode releases. but it'll remind you that it's released anyways.
Yeah. Also, we want to hear from you. Email us anytime or comment with case suggestions or your thoughts on episodes. Ericka was talking about going on Reddit earlier to get different like opinions and views. And like, we love that because it really helps expand our thought processes as well. And especially when you hear about something on one case that maybe you wouldn't have thought of, when you look into future ones, I think I at least tie back into that thought.
We tend to, and I think in a lot of our episodes, we'll be talking about something and we'll be like, hey, that's just kind of like the episode that we did 5 episodes ago. And we'll kind of reference that for a minute. And then that gives us a whole nother route to go on with that episode or with that case.
Yeah. And another thing that's been really exciting to notice about the podcast is how many international listens we're getting. Because a lot of our listens come from Indiana, like we can see that down to the cities too, but we have a lot across the country and across the globe too. So one of our pretty big demographics is where, Abby?
Australia, and I get so pumped when I see our Australia percentage go up. I love it. I did an Australia case just for you guys because I annoy the crap out of these two talking about it. I'm obsessed.
I can confirm that.
It's like a 9 or 10% chunk of the audience right now.
Which is pretty good, and it makes me really excited. I love that so much.
It's a higher chunk than what even Canada has, which to me seems a little weird since Canada's
which,
right there.
I mean, Australia is on the exact opposite side of the globe, which is really cool. So, but to kind of, which something we probably should do is kind of note where we're at as far as progress on the podcast. So right now we're about to hit 5,000 listens, I think, which is big to us.
Yeah.
I'm sure to other podcasts it's like, oh, okay, I remember 20 years ago. But so that's really cool.
And we haven't even been doing it for 3 months yet.
Right. So we just uploaded episode 13, right? So that's 13 full episodes and then probably half a dozen
7 or 8
mini episodes, which while we're talking about that, do we want to kind of discuss what our schedule is like? I mean, a lot of you guys probably already have caught on to it, but we have a pretty set schedule as far as those minis and just how we do things.
So on Thursdays we have our big ones, and Eric and I for the most part kind of alternate episodes that we personally researched, and then we throw in one where all three of us research together, like the John Wayne Gacy. And then the minis have their own kind of schedule, and Ericka, I'll let you tell them about that.
Yeah, so we kind of currently have a rotation of 4 minis that we do. The first one has been a mysterious moment. Some of the feedback we've gotten, we're not sure what we're going to do with that. We're kind of tweaking that to make it more interesting for you guys because, like I said, we love your feedback.
Yeah. So, and the one thing I think, too, with the mysterious moments, Ericka and I, and Bryce as well, we love ghost stuff. We love spooky stories. We like to go on ghost investigations. So we have a habit, I think, of leaning towards that. But true crime and ghost stories are 2 very different genres. And I think we're going to try to lean back more into crime stuff for the mysterious moments. And our goal is to have listeners submit us stories that they have had that has to do with crime, like maybe some little short ones, or if something scary happened, or originally we toyed around with like near misses, like things that could have happened, but either it went the right way for you or you were smart enough to identify the situation and make the right move.
Yeah, and I think originally what we were going for that is just the mini episodes were kind of going to be sort of a little detour from our regular routine of researching some sort of criminal. And so, you know, the idea of crime, you know, is a kind of in the same realm as things that are spooky or scary or whatever. So that's kind of what led us into the spooky stories, because we were talking about mysterious moments, and the first things we thought of were, well, this is some crazy paranormal thing that I experienced. So that came out pretty naturally. But I think, yeah, we're going to try to lean closer towards the near misses, or if you experience some sort of insane crime take place in front of you or whatever that might be, or maybe you were part of one. So yeah, we have some friends we're going to start having on the podcast too.
With that though, real quick, please don't send us confessions. Because he said if you were a part of one, we don't want the confessions.
Not on the bad side. Well, it's all bad, I guess, but not on the criminal side, more on the victim side.
Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah. So
don't want your confessions.
So we're gonna start featuring some people on the podcast to tell their stories. Obviously, if you're not from around here, that'll be hard to do. So we can, set up maybe a Skype conference call or a phone call, or just have you recorded ahead of time and we can react to it live. that kind of stuff. But I think that'll be fun. I think that'll be a good way to get audience members interactive with us.
Yeah, and then do you want to...
Yeah, and then the other mini series that we have, the next one that we do is Cold Cases. So just a mini cold case that doesn't quite have enough to it to be a full episode, but we feel like it's still important for you guys to know.
Like the Boy in the Box episode, definitely listen to that one. I've always been really interested in it, but there's just not a lot there.
And then we talked about the Lauren Spear one, where we connected Lauren to Israel.
Or theoretically, anyways.
Theoretically, yeah. And so that's kind of what that second one is. And then our next one that we do is FBI Minis. So Abby, I'll let you talk about that because that's kind of your realm.
Yeah, I've always been really big into the FBI Most Wanted. I love watching those shows, and I kind of had the idea just to tell stories about the ones that are on the list right now, especially since we have listeners from a pretty wide range of geographical locations, and these people that I talk about have not been captured. So any information to capture these people, I think, is important. It's good to get it out there, which is how the FBI Most Wanted list started, was to spread the word. So I became really interested in it. So I kind of took over on those ones, while Ericka went more to the wrongful convictions, and I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah. So the fourth one that we do is the wrongful convictions. So for me, this is something that I've always been really interested in. I was a criminal justice major in college, along with psychology, but my criminal justice classes, I wrote a lot of papers on the wrongful convictions in different ways. But the wrongful conviction one, I think, is kind of more of a positive note in a way, because it shows you kind of where the criminal justice system has failed. But then there's all these positive stories of the people that are being released and what they're going on to do that's good. Our next wrongful conviction episode it's Herman Atkins, and that one is super interesting, and he goes on to do amazing things after he's released. So look for that episode. And like I said, I feel like it's just kind of a little bit more of a positive spin, especially when the correct perpetrator has been identified. I feel like that's all like the main things about the podcast. Now we can kind of just talk about ourselves.
Let's just ramble.
Not ramble.
No.
We can go around and say what our favorite podcast that we've done so far is, and like why that is.
Favorite episode?
Yeah, our favorite episode.
Okay.
Do you want to... I think I know which one is yours, but I'll let you begin.
Let me begin. Do you know which one's mine?
It's me. It's half me,
It
right?
is half him.
Added a Laspiza at the end.
Yeah, Bryce Laspiza.
Which was the first
The
episode.
very first episode that we've done is one that I've known about for many, many years. And one that it blows my mind that a person can go missing without a single trace.
Well, and I think with Bryce Laspiza, there's a case we will probably, I don't know when, cover, the Maura Murray one. It's very similar, and I think, I know at least my mom and sister are obsessed with it, and whenever they heard the Bryce Laspiza one, they connected, not like actually connected, but it made them think of it. They found the connections in the cases, and Ericka has been talking about this case forever, guys. She's obsessed.
Yes, I am. And actually, speaking of the Maura Murray case, Alicia, your sister, gave me a book about Maura Murray. I haven't read it.
Shout out to Leash.
Yeah, shout out to you, Alicia. But she's like, I have this book and it's about her case. And so I think everybody that knows me knows that that's like my case that I'm super obsessed with, because if you guys have listened to the episode and if you've seen the pictures of Bryce Laspiza, I don't understand what happened to him. And I'm not going to go on too much of a rant here about it because there's a whole episode.
He's got a pretty distinct look.
He does have a very distinct look, but you guys can send us your thoughts about it.
Please send us your thoughts.
Please send us your thoughts about it. Like, I would love to know what you guys actually think happened to him. But yeah, I think that's probably my favorite case that we've done so far.
Ericka has a pretty secret, kind of strange theory, which she doesn't have to get into. But so we'll just move on to Abby.
We can't do that to the listener.
And me. What are you guys talking about?
Do you want to say it, or do we just want to move on?
No, you have to tell us now. What
All
is
right.
it?
Are you talking about how I think that maybe he was possessed?
Yeah.
Oh.
I was going to say, Abby, you know this.
I know this, and I fully support this notion.
I thought it was goofy at first, and then I was like, wait just a minute.
He was like, I was telling him about it, and he's like, no. And then by the end of this conversation, he was like, whoa, maybe.
Yeah, which, to put it very, very simply, it's just sort of matching his behavior, which is so inexplicable and strange that it almost has to fit with that kind of thing. And that's a really short way of putting it.
Yes.
If you want to go into more details, you can, but
I won't go into too many details. But his behavior is completely unlike himself, and him sitting there for hours on end doing nothing is something that is kind of as if he wasn't in his own body kind of type thing. So I think about my head just kind of went there, and I don't even know if like this is even a theory that's online or if this is just something that Ericka being
just
Ericka
came out of your
came
brain.
up with. But yeah, and so I think my end thought, if that was the case, that whole storyline would just be that he did end up dead one way or another due to the possession somehow. Whether or not that's what it is, and I know for some people that's so far out there that they don't even think that. That's why we didn't go into it on the episode.
I think just describing it quickly like that, it's kind of hard to really put it together. But if you keep that mentality in mind and listen to our episode on it, or just read through his story, a lot of little small things start to make sense for that, like how he drove around the same path multiple times as if he was trying to fight off some internal torture he was going through. But
I spent like over an hour explaining this to Bryce one day, and probably to Abby on a separate occasion. So my 2-second explanation that I just did doesn't do it justice.
So that's its own discussion.
Yeah.
But, so let's move on to Abby's favorite, and while she's doing that, I'm gonna go grab something that will help with my favorite episode.
Oh.
So go ahead.
Yeah, go get it.
Okay. Go ahead, Abby.
I'm so confused right now, but go ahead, Abby.
I was kind of waiting while he got up.
Oh.
You'll understand.
I am confused. I feel like I'm learning a lot about you two today. Things I don't know, and I don't know if I should know. I'm going to first really quick dabble on Ericka and the demonic possession thing. As I said earlier, we all are very interested in supernatural stuff. The show as well. Check it out.
Yep.
But, oh, okay. Bryce is walking back, and I can see what he's got, and it all makes sense.
Hide it from the...
Yeah, keep it hidden for now. But... you know, unfortunately, if you don't believe in that stuff, you're going to get little bits of it in our episodes because we're so keen to it. I know I talk a little bit about it in my favorite case, which is the Villisca axe murders. I have this habit of leaning towards cases and stories where like entire families are wiped out or gone because that become unsolved. Because to me, that's what gets me. Like, if you haven't listened to Villisca, definitely go check it out. But I don't see how an entire family can get murdered with an axe in such a violent way, and then they don't catch the person who did it. And also with Solder Children, which we just released not too long ago, where all the kids were possibly missing. And I just think it's so interesting and crazy, and especially when you just don't really know what led up to it, because there's always that, okay, they got home and went to bed, but then what happened? And we just have so many unknowns. And I think that's also why Ericka kind of likes the disappearance ones as well, because it gives you a lot to theorize and toy with, kind of. And I do have another case that's similar to that, and it's an Australia-based one where a couple kids go missing from a family. I'm not going to say what it is. I'm going to leave a little cliffhanger there, but that will be getting covered here pretty soon because it's one that's stuck with me for a long time. And with that, I'm going to throw it over there to Bryce because he's got you guys.
Well, I mean, I first wanted to interject with what you were talking about. So one of the very interesting things about, especially some of the ones that you've done, but really a lot of them overall, is the difference in capabilities of police and investigators just when it comes to time frame, because some of these cases take place mid-90s, early 90s. Have we done anything earlier than that?
Yeah.
Villisca was in the early 1900s.
So was Mysterious Room 1046.
Yeah, Solder Children's pretty early on.
Yeah, so we come at it with a perspective of what we know now. With like there's DNA testing and there's all sorts of updated forensic science out there. And so when things go strange, it's like that should not have happened. That should not have been possible. But there's a whole time frame difference in, decades ago or even a century ago. Things are so different. But yeah, so I'll jump into my favorite episode, which was the Israel Keys episode, which he was a very, very scary man. He was a serial killer, as you probably know. And I think the reason why he became my favorite was probably because he was the only one that I really looked into with my own interest, my own passion for just learning more about him. And he was a very interesting, even intelligent man that had an insane ability for planning and would leave kill buckets ahead of time for years and then just would come back willy-nilly and be like, oh, okay, well, here's someone to kill with these tools that I left years ago.
Yeah, and I think that's the creepiest thing for me is those kill buckets in that case. And then it's like, how many of them are still just out there buried that we will never know about? And it's just...
Or if you just randomly come across it.
A kill bucket in the ground. And that's horrifying.
It is.
Yeah, and so one of the cases that we ended up thinking that he might be connected to was the Lauren Spierer case. And so that sent us down a long rabbit hole, and I brought
one more long there.
Yeah, I brought a little sample of what this insanity looked like.
Before we do this, I'm going to intro you guys on this one because this is... I was on the episode for Israel and Lauren separately, but this is a Bryce and Ericka classic.
Classic.
I remember coming to Erica's one day and she goes, Abby, Bryce and I made a connection, and they have taken this very far as to going to certain locations to talk to certain detectives, and I'm gonna let Bryce show you guys his creation.
So we went so far as to think between ourselves, there is enough information here that we're gonna need to do this right if we're gonna research him. So we went to Walmart, bought corkboard, we bought string and thumbtacks, and printed out maps and travel records, logs of transactions, all sorts of stuff. And so this is part of it here.
This is hours worth of work, by the way.
And for those just listening on the audio, this will be posted. I don't know if you guys have already posted it on your Instagram.
Not posted it on our
We
Instagram.
will post it though.
Yeah, so this is your first look at our insanity. So I'll hold it up a little better here. You guys don't need to see me, but
I'll hide there too, don't worry.
but yeah, Ericka, if you want to point some things out. Okay. So we've up here, I think we've got his travel records from 2007, 2012.
Yes.
Are the years, and then we've got pictures of him and Lauren up here. We've got where he was traveling down there through Indiana, sort of his path. Details about her night and a map of there, all sorts of stuff.
Pointer.
So yeah, so I'm gonna move this now.
Okay, good luck.
But yeah, so that was several days in the making.
Well, that was...
Yeah, and why don't you tell them about your Bloomington trip?
Yeah, so we happened to live in the same state that this took place in, which is why I think we were so curious about it in the first place. But Ericka had the idea of...
Ericka pushed the idea.
Yeah, so how long was that drive? 4 hours?
It was, yeah.
At least.
Yeah, it was a long drive.
Yeah, so we went down there with the idea of, what, maybe we've stumbled across something. And we spent probably 2 weeks just trying to decide between ourselves, is this even worth it? Like, is this information new? So we did the most research I've ever done about anything, about one person. We just kept sitting there thinking, like, is this right? And we would go over detail after detail after detail about every part of her night, every part of his night. And it still kept clicking and it still kept making sense. And that's why eventually we decided to go down there. So if you want to give us a little rundown of how that went.
Well, our trip didn't go quite as planned. We got down there with the intent of speaking to a detective about the disappearance of Lauren. So we went to the police station and a guy showed up and said that... Like, we gave him a little bit of a detail about what we were talking, or what we kind of had going.
Well, he thought he was going to guess. He was like, just up front, who do you think it is?
Yeah.
And we told him, he's like, oh.
I've never heard of him.
I haven't heard of him. So that was kind of a good sign to us.
Do you know who he was thinking?
I don't think he said.
I don't know if he knew who he was thinking. Did we even... I think all we did was... we told him. Anyways, so I don't know who he was thinking, but when we said Israel Keys, he was like, I've never heard of that person.
And that's when he told us that the relevant detective who works on it full time, even to this day, which it's been over 10 years now?
It was 2012.
So it's getting close to a decade now, and there's still a detective that to this day works on it full time. And so that's why they still accept tips and they still accept ideas and theories. But he told us, this guy's not in the office today. Come back tomorrow. And we're like, well,
that was not the plan.
That's the problem. So We did not intend to be staying overnight out of town 4 hours away from home. So,
well, and a fun fact, if you have listened to room 1046, I said that right?
Yep.
We comment on this trip specifically where they weren't intending on it and showed up with a toothbrush and a hairbrush or something.
And
this is what I'm talking about.
We just went to the dollar store
and grabbed a couple, like, the necessities. And we're like, making this work in this hotel.
And then that next morning, we called the detective because we had his number, and we just ended up discussing it over the phone. And so I went through all the details that I had with him over the phone, and he said that he had heard of this theory did exist before us. He had heard of it, but a lot of the details and connections that we had come up with were things that he hadn't heard of before, like his previous trip from 2007, how that was connected, how different parts of his travel just lined up time-wise, random details he hadn't quite put together yet or heard of yet. So that was really positive, at least for us. And then he basically asked to maintain an open dialogue with us if we come up with anything else, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was, like, not the way that we planned the trip to go.
No, we expected to walk in and be like, we solved it.
We got this, and then just, like, walk home or drive home.
Yeah.
But I still feel like... I definitely feel better about it knowing that we officially talked to somebody that knows more. And we
retraced all of her steps for the night that we went missing, which was a very strange sort of feeling of like, this is the balcony that so-and-so stood on while they watched her walk away. This is the direction she walked. This is the turn she made. This is the alley that she probably went missing in, and all that stuff. And it was a strange feeling, but it was
so creepy.
It was interesting for sure.
In the dark, and just knowing that, I don't know, that was somebody's last steps. Yeah,
so that was my favorite episode, was the Israel Keys, but I guess specifically us discussing that theory would be the actual episode that I enjoyed the most. So what do we have left? Anything else we want to say?
I was thinking that we could talk about some things that we do besides the podcast, because, I mean, we are technically podcasters now, but we do a lot of other things.
Yes, we all work.
We all have jobs. Yeah. So, Abby, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, this past May, I actually just graduated with a bachelor's degree in geography with a concentration in travel and tourism.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Great job.
I'm in the process of applying to grad schools. I just got an application in, and I'm waiting to hear back on that. And that's kind of my plan. Hobby-wise, I watch a lot of true crime stuff. I watch a lot of ghost stuff. We all like to go on ghost investigations. I also am very interested in painting. I enjoy doing that, and anything outdoors. We're starting to get to that season here in Indiana where outdoors is requiring a little extra clothing, which I'm not as fond of. I don't like snow necessarily, but definitely being outdoors is one of my favorite things to do.
I go next?
Yeah, what are your hobbies other than editing the podcast?
Well, that's my favorite.
I know.
My favorite hobby. But no, so I've been running a small scale film production company since I was 17. And so that does a lot of commercial work with advertisements. I shoot wedding films. I do product photography. I do all sorts of stuff. It's a pretty wide-ranging company. I started a second company when I was 21 that specializes in high-speed imaging, for like ballistics research, stuff like that, rent out equipment. And then this right now is pretty much what I'm doing on the side outside of all that. So not a whole lot of free time left outside of those things. And right now I'm in the middle of deciding if I want to take on another job. So there was a pretty nice job offering for leading the digital marketing for a pretty big company about an hour away from where I live. So lots of decisions to make, but he
will still be doing the podcast, for those of you wondering.
We're still going to be here, guys.
Yeah.
It's something we'll make work, but so outside of that, what little time I do have, I like to make trips to Tennessee when I can, because it's a nice place to be. So I do like to travel. Watching scary movies is fun.
Yes.
When we force him.
We love it.
Or playing scary video games.
Outlast.
You guys use me for my PlayStation.
Always.
I bought the game.
Okay. I think we buy you enough pizza that it adds up.
I guess it's true.
Ericka and I are also right after we're done recording this, we'll be gone when it comes out, but we're going to Nashville, Tennessee.
Yes.
You said Tennessee trip and my ears perked up.
I
So I'm
know.
pumped.
We are leaving and we are excited for a vacation.
We're doing spooky ghost tours.
Believe it or not.
Ericka, or did you have more, Bryce?
I mean, the nice thing about what I do as a career is it's also kind of my passion and my hobby. So just photography in general, whether it's nature photography or just going out and shooting stuff for fun or just stuff like that. So thankfully, I feel pretty lucky that what I do for a living is what I also enjoy doing. So it's pretty much all of my time. And then we do this.
Yeah, and so I am a case manager for a company that works with people on the Medicaid waiver, so people with disabilities, and so I do that mainly. Other than this, that one it's really nice though. I pretty much get to make my own schedule, and so I really enjoy that. I tend to prefer to work at night rather than during the day. I do better, so it's nice that I can do things, the paperwork and stuff at night. I work from home, which is really nice. Shout out to my supervisor, Geraldine. I know she listens to the podcast. And she actually was the one that had suggested the Osborne family case that we did recently. So go check that case out.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. Other than that, I hang out with friends. And by friends, I mean these two.
We're fairly consistently together.
Abby and I have been together every day for the last way too long now.
I don't think so. I think it goes well. The only thing we struggle with is that Ericka is that night person, and I'm definitely more of a morning person. So it'll be 10:30, 11. I'm like, all right, it's time for bed. She's like, what? And then I'm trying to wake her up at like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. And she's
I
like,
didn't go to bed until like 3. And so she's like, wake up. And I'm like, go away now.
Good fun.
Yeah. So that's our biggest difference, I would say. But yeah, the three of us do hang out pretty consistently.
The future for us of the podcast, right now we're definitely we all have such different things we're doing, but this is something I think that really brings us together, and we want it to go farther. Mm-hmm. Like we are constantly having, we call family meetings, looking and discussing ways that we can try to make this more popular, because we love it. We love doing it. It's a lot of fun. And
we take this very seriously. I mean, there are moments where with the towels, Abby and I fight and argue, or Bryce and I get into it. I don't really know that Abby and Bryce get into it, but Bryce and Ericka get into it pretty frequently.
Mom and Dad fight, and I'm just here awkwardly in the corner.
That's what she says.
You make it sound like such a struggle, but I think it's really fun. And so yeah, I mean, about the future. So we obviously like to look as far long term as we can. So when we notice small shifts in our audience size or whatever it may be, we got to figure like, okay, what's going on? So we probably look into it a little bit too much sometimes, but we're trying to come up with new ideas, which is why we do the Monday minis and why we're doing this. And so we're gonna pay more attention to social media. Things like merchandise might be cool someday. Like I'm not gonna be too egotistic and say that we're some big podcast yet, but hopefully someday a Crime Over Coffee mug would be a pretty cool thing.
Hey, who can't use an extra coffee cup? Especially when it's got a cute logo on there.
I mean, how many coffee mugs do I have?
And I think someday it might be a good idea to do like a giveaway or something.
Yeah.
Just every now and then, whether it's that or
we also hope to get to the point where we can do like a Patreon thing where we can, if you donate a little bit to us, we can donate more of our time to you and give you that extra content. That's, I think, a big goal for me, at least. I really would like to be able to do that. The merchandise would be great. I love art. I think I designed our logo.
Abby designed the logo.
So I think that would bring me into it a little bit more with when it comes to merchandise. So that is a really big, exciting thing to me. I would love to get more into a marketing aspect as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that really leads into the idea that at some point this becomes a business endeavor. And so that's why we try to take it seriously, and we try to do things that are different and creative and fun, because at some point it might be one of our sources of income, and we obviously will try to do our best, and any feedback is welcome.
Yeah.
So I was thinking too, if you wanted, I have a couple of cases on my mind that I kind of want to say that I might be interested in doing to see if we get any responses on whether or not, I don't know if you have some too. I know for a fact Ericka and I have talked about this one specific one that seems to be a very popular one. It happened in Indiana, the Delphi case.
Yep.
I think that one's going to be coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, keep a lookout for that one. Probably going to be released end of November, I think is the
By
goal.
then. I think it's coming up quick.
And I think that's probably going to be, and we'll let Bryce know because he was not aware of this. I think that's going to be a triple.
You're going to be in there.
We all do the research and the...
Yeah, every now and then we're going to do a fairly popular case, just because the popular ones tend to have the most details that we can research. And, oftentimes people will cover those pretty often, so we'll try to give our own fresh take on it. But yeah, those are the ones that I get to be thrown into, and research is fun too.
And I really like our small case ones as well. I have a book of a bunch of ones from Indiana because that's, it's our home state. So we're really interested in it. But I would love to do some of those in other areas too, where it's nothing happens in this small town, but this murder happened. So if you guys know of some from your area and you want to let us know, please do.
Yeah, send them in.
We have one listener suggestion that we're planning on doing here pretty soon. I've got another one that I've gotten in that I still haven't even told Ericka and Bryce about, but I think it's a case you probably know. That one comes from Alicia, so shout out to her, but that one's coming up too.
Yeah, I have a couple that I'm really interested in doing. The Zodiac Killer, which is going to be another one where the three of us research it. That one will probably be released in December-ish, but that one's super interesting to me. And then I think the next one that I'm going to be doing is going to be Bethany Decker, another person that just up and vanished and no body's been recovered. So look out for that one too, because that'll be an interesting case.
And I'm looking to do some international ones. I've definitely got my Australia cases.
Always Australia.
They're coming hot off the press. I've got some research done on some of them, so those are going to be popping up soon as well.
Yeah, and I think what we try to strive for is a nice balance between popular cases that everybody knows about and the smaller ones that maybe nobody really knows about, and then ones that are close to us, ones that are international. So we try to strike a nice balance. And
I think we do a nice balance between it being missing person, it being a murder, it being a serial killer,
spree killer.
We try to mix it all up.
We really try to focus on not doing kid ones back to back too much, because we know that there are listeners who have a hard time listening to those ones.
Those are always hard to listen to.
Which I'll tell you what, we have a hard time researching them and talking about them too.
We always need moments.
Yeah. John Wayne Gacy got me a little bit, so
that was a rough
it's a spooky one.
There's all sorts of crazy stuff you run into, like when he worked at the morgue. Just the stuff that he did there, shivers.
And then there's the lighter episodes, and then there's the darker ones. I mean,
Mysterious Room 1046. There's a lot of laughing in that one, and I think that one's an okay one to kind of make some jokes about here and there.
Not that any is really okay, but it's enough. It had enough, I guess, almost like ludicrous moments in it, and it's just facts of the case that it got us a few times. And
a guy that was clearly attacked, claiming that he fell against a bathtub. That was something that we just had to kind of laugh about for a minute, because it just made zero sense. And I think that a lot of these cases, you do have to think of them a little bit more in a light manner. Otherwise, you'll just drive yourself insane thinking about all the horrific things that happen. So in order for us to talk about them and cover them completely, we do have to take that lighter route sometimes.
And we're pretty lighthearted, goofy people too. And I think you guys will probably, even more, the more we get comfortable, see that coming through in our episodes.
Yeah.
Because right now we're only 13 episodes in, so we have a long way to go, but we've also kind of come a long way. Which
is crazy, because it feels like we've been doing this for a while.
It does feel like we've been doing this for so long.
I think there's a really noticeable change in how we talk and dialogue on microphone from our first episode until now, which is good.
At first, he sticks this thing in front of us, and we're just like, hello, how does this work?
Well, first we started from a microphone that's not even meant for podcasting. We would kind of have to share it and split the difference of pointing it at us, and it didn't sound the best. And so now we've got a pretty good setup, and right now that's just all coming out of our personal pockets. This research that like the articles that we buy for research, different newspapers, or just the equipment itself. So right now that all comes out of pocket. So that's why we hope that eventually this becomes at least profitable, so it's easier for us to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else from anybody? I think that covered everything that we.
Yeah.
I think we can wrap this up.
All right.
We've been yapping for a while.
Yeah, we have. I think a good something I want to say for sure is that once again, I know I've already said it. They've already said it. We do appreciate you guys listening. It means so much to us.
So much.
We are checking constantly.
Yeah.
And
I'm like itching to check right now. To
I
see.
know. I'm about to pull it up. As soon as we get off this, we're going to pull up our app and see where we're
See
at.
how many plays we got on John Wayne Gacy.
We were at 27, I think.
And it just released.
Since this morning?
How many hours ago?
It really
Not so
love
long
it.
ago.
5 hours ago. Yeah.
We love it. And we've given you our social media. Definitely go check us out. Give us those ratings and reviews.
Share our podcast with your friends, family.
The fact that people take, 30, 40, 50 minutes out of their day to listen to us talk is pretty incredible.
Very.
Whether it's your drive to work or just chilling at home or whatever it might be, taking a bath. Who knows? But it all matters to us because it shows that what we're doing at least means something to someone.
Yeah. Real quick, I'm going to mention all of the podcast platforms that we can be found on, and then we'll wrap it up. So this is mainly for the people watching. If you're listening to our podcast at the moment, then you're probably already on one of the platforms. But you can find us on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Podbean. We might be on more that we're not already aware of. So if you guys find us on another platform, let us know.
Did you say Spotify?
Spotify, if I didn't. I think it's
Spotify.
written on here.
Oh, she probably said it. I'm sorry.
Really want to give a shout out to Spotify.
Spotify.
That's what I listen to, y'all. So I was excited.
So yeah, if you find us on there, like I said, rate us, review us, heart us, comment, whatever.
And tell other people that are interested. That really helps us out. So I think we can wrap it up. Thanks for listening and or watching. We appreciate it a lot.
Thank you, guys.
Goodbye.